Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, "You Only Want Me to Work My Hours?" I was an employee who always turned up to work early as I hate being late and just got on with work as soon as I arrived, which was usually 30 minutes before my shift. I never took a lunch break, instead just eating at my desk and working, as I was busy all the time. I would often stay late to get the day's work done, otherwise, it snowballs into the following day and I can never catch up. I also did a lot of things for people that wasn't technically my job, but I often knew more about the query than the department that was supposed to deal with it. One day, I was stuck in traffic due to an accident and called ahead to let them know I was going to be 10 minutes late. I got there about 5 minutes late and promptly got on with the already surmountable amount of work. Later that morning, I was called into the manager's office and yelled at as I didn't come, apologizing personally for being late. I explained that I called ahead and I'm always in early unless it is out of my control and never take a lunch break. This didn't matter, as that was my choice and I'm expected to be there on time and just do my job. That's exactly what I did. Anything that wasn't my job, I asked them to contact the relevant department, as I couldn't help. I sat at my desk and didn't log on until my start time, took my lunch and left on time. This caused a lot of issues, as everyone knew to call me any time during working hours for urgent things. Within a week, the managers were having a go at me as they were having to take calls during their lunch, and I had made this issue as I was too helpful, and now I'm being petty because I got told off. I was looking for another job anyway, but this made me realize I was just a number to the company. I was made to take on a lot of extra work before this incident from my manager. I tried to protest the new workload as I knew the other department had downplayed how much work it actually was, as I worked closely with them. But I was told it wouldn't take too much extra time in my day and help out the other department as they were struggling. Within a month, I had another job within the company and gleefully moved offices just as the handover of work started. Last I heard, there were 5 of them doing my old job plus a supervisor. From a company where you were expected to be grateful for a £500 pay rise every other year, this must have been a huge dent in their budget. The next story is called, "Restaurant Compliance." This story is from a guy the first know. We both work in emergency services and public safety. He was at a restaurant with his family. He racked up a bill of over $100. The waitress brings the bill, he puts his credit card in the receipt thing and hands it to her. She comes back a few minutes later and tells him she can't charge the meal to that card because he doesn't look like the picture on the credit card. Well, that's true, he had lost 150 pounds in the preceding 2 years. That's me. I used to be much bigger. "I'm sorry sir, you don't look like the picture. My manager won't let me run the card." "Well, I don't carry that much cash. And that's my only credit card. So what do you want to do?" "I don't know, sir. But I can't charge this card if you don't match the picture." "Well kids, you heard the lady. Free meal." The manager comes out. "Sir, you're going to have to find another way to pay for the check." "There isn't another way. I gave you my card, you refused to charge it. So it's your problem now. Well, if you leave, I'll have to call the police. If you insist." 10 minutes later, a police officer arrived. He said, "Hey Josh, what's up?" Due to work, he personally knows all the local police officers. They won't take my card because it has my old picture on it. The police officer was trying very hard not to laugh. "Yes, I can vouch for him. He is the same person as that extremely big guy on the picture on the card. I can't charge the card if the picture doesn't match. So he's tried to pay, and I've confirmed he is who he says he is, and that picture on the card is him, and you won't run the card?" "I'm not allowed to, no." "Well Josh, you heard the lady. Free meal." Josh and the officer then proceeded to stand in the parking lot for another 20 minutes, laughing and talking, while the manager glared out the door from behind the hostess stand. Josh's wife and kids had long since walked to Target across the parking lot. I often would ask him if he had been back to that restaurant. He said he got a new card recently and he did go back, just he and his wife. It was a different waitress, he never saw the manager, just ate, paid and left. The third story is called, "I Made Sure to Get a Receipt This Time." My father gets sent on business trips fairly often. As with most business trips, all of his expenses are covered. When he has to spend money during the trip on things that can't be paid in advance, he gets reimbursed by the company when he gets back and lets them know what he spent and what he spent it on. This is just stuff like the hotel, food, and transport. During one of those trips, he was staying in a Swiss hotel and taking a plane back home the next morning. As he leaves the workplace, they ask him if they should order him a taxi for the next morning to get to the airport, which is about 50 kilometers away. He replies that it's a 5 minutes walk from his hotel to the train station, so he'll just take a train to the airport instead. He does, and a few days later he gets a call from whatever finance department handles repaying expenses. They ask him if he's got a receipt for his train ticket because otherwise, they can't cover it. My dad replies he only has the actual train ticket, which has the price on it. But that's all he has, you just buy it at a machine in the station and all that you get is the ticket. There is no receipt. So the lady at the phone tells him they can't pay him the cost because he doesn't have a receipt. So a few weeks later, he's back in the exact same spot, and when they ask if he's going to take the train again, my dad said, "I can't. I don't get a receipt that way. Please order me that taxi." So the next morning he goes on a fairly long taxi drive to the airport. Fun fact, Swiss taxi rides are very expensive. Once again, a few days after he's back, a call from finances. They asked what this €200 charge is, and how he had to spend so much this time. He replies with something in the lines of, "Well, last time I took the train, but you didn't want to reimburse my ticket because I didn't have a receipt. So this time I took a taxi. But don't worry, I made sure to get a receipt this time. So there should be no problem with paying me back for this, right?" I was told they accepted because technically there was nothing they could do. The expense was necessary to get to the airport and he had a receipt proving it. Later that day, they informed that in the future, he was allowed to use the train if it was cheaper. And he would only need to provide them with the train ticket. The next story is called, No Phone Calls. This didn't happen to me, but to a coworker, whom we'll call Alex. We worked for a chain of English language schools in Japan, and if you're a substitute, you're likely to be dispatched in many different directions, to various schools. One day, Alex was riding the train, when he received an international call from his family. The call lasted only a moment, but he didn't realize there was a student on the same train who recognized him and was offended by the conversation. It's not illegal to talk on your phones while on trains, but it's considered bad form. Anyway, the student complained to school staff without saying anything to Alex himself, and word eventually made its way back to personnel at the headquarters. Now, the personnel coordinator at the time was a jerk, and he decided to flex his manager muscles. Rather than sending a simple email asking Alex to refrain from using the phone, he called Alex in on his day off, talked to him for a great deal longer than was necessary, and made Alex write 2 statements. 1. A letter to the unknown student, apologizing for the incident. And a promise that would go into his personnel file, saying he'd never answer his phone on the train again. Fast forward a couple of months, and Alex, working as a substitute teacher, takes the train to his base school, where he'd be stationed in case of emergencies. The train arrives, and he steps aboard, but then gets a call. It shows it's personnel, and the only reason they'd call at this time is if an emergency arose, and he needs to get to another school as soon as possible. Alex ignores the call, and enjoys the 40-minute train ride to his base school while on the clock, with a nap. When he gets off the train, he calls back personnel, who's livid and demands to know why he wasn't answering his phone. "Why, Mr. Coordinator, you told me to never answer my phone on the train, and I would never think of contradicting you. You made me promise, after all." There is an angry silence and gnashing of teeth on the other end of the call, with the coordinator probably holding back an angry tirade. "Just get on the train and get back here. We need you at another school location." And then he hangs up. This was 40 minutes back the way Alex came from, plus a good 20 minutes further. Alex shrugged and grabbed the next returning train, where I like to imagine he enjoyed another good nap while still on the company clock. The last story is called, Forcing Employee to Quit. So this happened a bit more than a year ago. We got a new line manager, that was brought in as part of making a company more efficient. By this, it was secretly meant to find a way to boot out highly paid employees and replace them with much cheaper Indian or Eastern European counterparts. Mind you that I only pieced most of this together after leaving the company. This, of course, was never put publicly or in writing. It just seemed rather odd that a lot of employees started disappearing and within a week or so being replaced with said people. As a previous recruiter, I have never heard of any recruitment process taking a week or less. This, of course, meant my time had come and that I was next to be made to leave. This was done in a series of steps by firstly demoting me to a help desk position and then subsequently giving me warnings for not fulfilling my duties when the first attempt did not work. Our entire department would from time to time help out with third-level help desk stuff. Generally, very complex technical issues that the support department couldn't handle themselves. Now, this in itself was not much of an issue, as we were 3 to 4 employees part-timing it, spending about 40% of our time on this. This is the exact thing that was dumped in my lap, as my sole responsibility. As you might have figured out, this is up to 160% work time for one individual, so essentially not humanly possible. These are also not made-up numbers, as we recorded time spent on performance reviews. This, of course, inevitably became a stress factor and root of many hours of overtime, which is also unpaid at this company. I went to my new line manager with this issue and there not being enough time. To which I was told to just deal with it and that there was no more work than I could handle, and that I, in fact, was also not doing the work thoroughly enough. This prompted me to ask what parts one was not doing good enough, which was apparently the troubleshooting part. I explained I had to skimp on to keep pace, as it was the most costly time-consuming part of the process. I then improved upon this, only to have a large backlog of cases build up and get reprimanded for this. This went back and forth for a month or two until I got a written notice of my dismissal if conditions did not improve, basically entailing me failing to meet any of my contractual workload, not just the previously discussed. Having previously tried being inebriated by severe stress and feeling it creep up on me, as well as this country having little to no discourse to use legal or union means to solve these kinds of things, I went to my doctor. This ended up in me actually getting an exemption from the stressful parts of my job, which were basically the only parts of my job left. And my line manager now having to scramble to find a solution, as an illness does not require notice, as she was surely expecting from me resigning. What this resulted in was great, as she had to make a shift schedule for the rest of our team, now being one man short and trying to avoid herself getting the terrible duty. What she ended up doing though was making a daily rotating schedule for all of us, me included, even though she had written doctor's orders not to. This resulted in me having to refuse on my shift days, her having to take over for me, doing a crap job of it and getting the next member on the schedule mad. The best part of this was that a few weeks later, I was called into a meeting with the whole team where everyone implored me to return to my duties as it was disruptive to their work and created an unnaturally high workload. I stuck to it though and was later fired on the basis of the written warning, with 8 months severance. And the kicker is, they waited just long enough for my severance to get bumped by 2 additional months. It was a great vacation though, and I could not be happier to be out of that job. And for anyone wondering, yes, I did have a lawyer and 2 union representatives involved and even present at some meetings, but in the communist and cold north, you work for the government does not work for you. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.